I have a question for you. Have you noticed that whenever somebody makes one of those COVID-19 related posts, they typically start it off by saying something along the lines of, in these uncertain times? I've even said it in a few of my posts. But what I was thinking about the other day was, when has life ever been certain? It's like the people who say, make America great again, to which people of color and women respond with, hold on, when was America great for us? But that's a whole other conversation. Here's the point I want to make. The one certainty that we can return to is the sobering truth that life itself is uncertain. And what this pandemic has done is it's exposed our illusion, or maybe it's a delusion, that there is this certainty that we can somehow rely on in normal life. But as far as I've seen, there's no certainty in any of it. Even before the pandemic, there was no certainty that our relationships would last, or that our jobs would be there tomorrow, or that our kids wouldn't go out and do something stupid. There's no certainty with the weather. There's no certainty with the stock market or with our health. No one can say for certain that they will never get sued or never be accused of doing something they didn't do or never get into a car accident. Because the reality is nothing is for certain. Nothing is 100% guaranteed. Nothing is 100% under anybody's control. Now, this can sound like a terrible, awful, horrible thing if we continue to invest ourselves emotionally into the illusion that having things stay the same and be predictable is better than having them change all the time. But if we look around, we'll see in nature that everything is changing. Everything is cyclical and seasonal, and that constant change is the nature of the world we've been living in the entire time. And that adapting to change is ultimately what makes us stronger and what gives us the capacity to live and to love. And if we're operating from that understanding, that change is not only good, but it's a sign of progress, then we can begin to look at these times of uncertainty as more than just the misfortunes that we experience both individually and collectively. I mean, sure, some things have to be lost, and these losses will be painful for a lot of people, but there are also a lot of gifts and opportunities for growth and expansion. There are opportunities to help and to serve and to live life with a greater sense of meaning and purpose rather than just living to accumulate as much wealth as possible while ignoring the suffering of others. And so the question is, what are we paying more attention to? Yes, there are people in pain. Yes, there are people suffering. Even in my own life, there are people who are having a very difficult time with all of this. So I'm not denying that that's happening or asking anyone to ignore the suffering in the world. I want to be clear about that. But here's the real problem. People have been suffering the entire time, even before the pandemic. And if we're being honest, most of us have been pretending like we didn't see it or that it didn't affect us personally. And now we can't do that any longer. We can no longer ignore the fact that the healthcare system in America is broken for most people. And we can no longer ignore the divide between the haves and the have-nots. And that the financial system that rewards and protects the haves at the expense of the have-nots is rigged. And when this is all over with and life appears to be more predictable, emphasis on the word appears, which I guess is what we think we want, even though it's never really predictable. But then the question is, will we go back to pretending that the suffering of the many does not affect the few? Or will we keep up this same vigilance, this same energy when it comes to helping those who are suffering economically and emotionally and mentally. So when we say we're feeling restless and in a hurry to get back to normal, which normal are we talking about? Back to being willfully ignorant of all the disparities that this pandemic has exposed in our society? Or back to our true nature of caring for one another and fighting for one another, and if necessary, sacrificing our temporary comfort for one another, just like you would do for your child. Except now we see that the entire human race is affected by our individual choices. I think that deep down, this is probably one of the best things that could have happened for us as a society. Because now we can see more clearly what needs to be done to help the vulnerable, to help the disadvantaged. We can't ignore it any longer. And pandemic or no pandemic, I am going to try to remember that uncertainty is the real status quo, along with the fact that whether we want to admit it or not, and whether we're going to do something meaningful about it or not, you and me and everyone else, we're all in this together. So we either rise up together or we go down together, but we're all in it together. If you have anything productive to add to the conversation, please feel free to leave a comment. Unproductive commenters will be blocked, so make sure you put your most thoughtful foot forward. And if this message rings true for you, please feel free to share it with your followers. And I'll see you back here tomorrow. Thank you for watching. I add new videos daily, so make sure you click to subscribe so you don't miss out. And if you want to see the next insight, just click on over to the right. You can also follow me on Instagram @LightWatkins, and I look forward to seeing you next time.